minutes to kick us off. So I want to, we'll jump right into things. One of the major things that we tracked in the survey was enterprise buyer preferences around public versus private cloud. So the obvious question here to ask, is the enterprise, what are we seeing around enterprise warming up to the idea of moving more of their application workloads to the public cloud?
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. So one of the things we did as part of the survey was, identified what are the top 15 workloads in the enterprise. Everything from CRM to websites to new web apps to BI to test dev and DR, backup and recovery, ERP. And one of the interesting things we found is that, with the exception of maybe 2 workloads, there was a preference for private clouds for every workload today in the enterprise. I think it was actually CRM and collaboration. So the whole private versus public, when we actually broke that down by workload, there's a strong enterprise preference now for private clouds. So that was one interesting kind of insight from that. The other one was around public cloud infrastructure as a service, and we asked buyer preferences around 10 major vendors there that represented kind of new cloud pioneers, but also some of the legacy enterprise IT vendors. And what we're a bit surprised to find was that across nearly all those vendors, buyers were either not aware of the services or aware and were not going to consider them. And in fact, there's some folks on the enterprise or legacy side where that number of either wouldn't consider, not aware, was as high as 90%. So a bit surprising for us there as well. But I think the overall theme from that is that at this point we're seeing a strong preference for private clouds in the enterprise. Yeah.
Now, I know one of the things we looked at as well was the specific application workloads and which applications were more likely to move to the cloud versus others. And, and this is something we tracked from last year's research through to this year. Was there anything out of that that sort of struck you as interesting or any kind of big changes in the data? Yeah,
there's actually something that was pretty stunning in there, which was, for the first time from what we've seen, the majority of enterprises expect migration to some type of cloud platform for all of the workloads that we surveyed. And that includes private and public, granted, but everything from what you might consider an edge application or use case like CRM or websites, all the way to core ERP, financials, and GL. The majority of enterprises believe they're going to move those workloads to a cloud delivery model. So in many ways, we think that it's always hard to identify a tipping point for enterprise cloud adoption, but it seems like we're in the vicinity. Yeah, we're in the vicinity.
Okay. And then I want to talk a little bit about open cloud. Certainly within the industry, there's been a huge amount of support from the vendor community around open clouds, especially OpenStack recently. So my question, since this survey focused on the enterprise side of things and enterprise adoption, is the enterprise buying it? What was the kind of the willingness to look at open source solutions within the enterprise?
Yeah, so we took a look at it in 2 dimensions. We took a look at virtualization technology and also cloud platforms. And what we found on the cloud platform side is that VMware is still the overall market share leader, but the majority of respondents either had a preference for open source models, whether that be OpenStack, CloudStack, Eucalyptus, or had no preference between the 2.
Right.
So it does seem to be a kind of trend towards more of a focus on open source models and technologies.
Interesting. And one of the things that we've been looking at is the kind of the changing buyer profile with cloud solutions. And I think the survey pointed to some really interesting trends there as well. Maybe you could expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so back to the workloads we took a look at, what we found is that line of business executives or developers were the primary decision maker or change agent for driving migration to the cloud across nearly every workload. And that's not saying that IT isn't involved in that process. They clearly are. But in terms of who are the change agents, who are the decision makers that are really driving migration to the cloud, except for maybe test dev or DR, it's line of business and business executives that are really driving that in the enterprise.
Okay, great. Well, Scott, thanks so much for doing the research. It was a pleasure to work with you and the Everest team on this. And yeah, we look forward to more interesting trends and analysis in the future.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Scott. I should point out that Scott is also the track chair of our organizational readiness track here at the conference, and he's got some amazing speakers lined up, companies like American Express, Fidelity, and Novartis Pharmaceuticals. So definitely check out his track. He's also going to do tomorrow in one of the org readiness tracks. He's going to do a deeper dive on the research findings, where we'll have some slides to show in a little more detail on the data there. So definitely check out what Scott has going on there. Okay, we're going to open up our program today with a rather provocative session title. It's titled, Are Clouds the Gateway Drug to a Quantified Society? We have the huge honor of welcoming Dr. Ann Winblad, co-founder and managing director with Hummer Winblad Venture Partners, to lead this panel. Ann is joined by an esteemed group of panelists, including Ashesh Badani, general manager of the Cloud Business Unit at Red